Buongiorno a tutti, ringrazio.
Thank you. I'm pleased to see the participation of our European partners here today to discuss their specificities and their experiences at the local level. I'd like to thank the representatives of the TAN system and the speakers who preceded me. As the director correctly said, just a few words to begin with on the European project that is being concluded today. Firstly, with Mr. Pancaldi, we agreed that the European project was very specific. It wasn't a very general one, as in other cases. We focused on the posting of workers in Europe. So, as a European bilateral system of the Italian funds, and I represent CNCE, which is the coordinating committee of our construction funds, and we have 110 local funds. We coordinate these. So together with our counterparts in France, Germany, and Austria, for many years, we have signed some agreements which talk about UCF and BAU regarding the posting of workers within our respective countries, agreements that facilitated the work of businesses and allowed workers to retain and see their work recognized, and to obviously have the characteristics of the contracts applied recognized. Now, then, regarding the specificities of the European project, I think the other speakers will talk about this and the director will draw the conclusions. My personal hope is to continue. We're already talking about a third European project to build on what has been achieved so far in order to keep this up. The idea presented earlier, i.e., to have a common, unique European network where all the businesses and all the players who need to or intend to post workers use this network and are registered with this network and with this system so that it can govern everything and the movement of workers. So I think this is something that needs to be examined and pursued, because I think that this can assure minimum wages and the specificities of countries in the different countries. Only if we have a common supervisory authority. Otherwise, if we leave it to the goodwill of countries or regions, I think it would be rather critical. Now, I would like to briefly focus on the Italian system and its criticalities and the positive aspects of what we are pursuing in our country. As I said, I represent a system of funds governed by our provinces. In every Italian province, there can be one or more construction workers' funds, our unions and workers' associations are a bit more complicated. We often have more organizations represented, and we have several unions too. And then so the Association of Builders, which I represent, we represent the majority of businesses. You had 75%, we have 85% of companies that are represented by that have 1 to 9 or 10 maximum workers. This is a common feature. We say that this is the strength of the Italian system, and even the German one too, I think, because even in times of crisis, we're able to favor development the development of this kind of work, but at the same time, the criticalities that this entails is something we're aware of, and I heard our German colleagues underscore these, and these are the same criticalities that we have too in our sister. Together with the construction workers' funds that are recognized as private organizations, even though they have a connotation. I'll explain what we do with regard to the certificates, certifying social security contribution payments. We also have some building, schools, and joint committees, territorial joint committees that perform inspections at building sites, supporting and providing consultancy to business and workers, but also compounding a supervisory system that we have in our country. The Italian system has benefited and has grown a lot in checking the regularity of workers following the application of the Social Security Contributions Payment Certificate in 2006. This is an initiative and a system that really drastically changed what was required in terms of inspections before. In Italy, we have many inspection or supervisory bodies for the same functions, but also for different areas. So we have some that deal with pensions, holiday pay, and safety. So all these institutions were disconnected. We weren't able to achieve thorough coordination now. As far as the application of the DORC, namely the Social Security Contributions Payment Certificate, my Italian colleagues know this. In 2006, with the introduction of this Contributions Payment Certificate, we obtained some benefits, and we helped to make illegal work emerge significantly because why? Well, it forced enterprises and whoever wanted to take part in public or private works to obviously issue a certificate, a contributions payment certificate, and this is a unique certificate. So the three institutions in charge of supervising these kind of activities, the INPS, INAIL, this is Civil Risk Safety, and the Construction Workers Fund. So all three had to give the green light to issue this certificate, allowing therefore companies to take part in public tenders and to achieve payments for as work progresses, because at each work progress stage, this certificate is required, and also the regularity in the payment of contributions. And now, for organizational needs, this document was made online. It was created in 2015. We have the online contributions payment certificate that helped speed up the issuing of these certificates, because before all these verification phases required some time, and therefore it took time. It's obviously not being able to take part in tenders or experiencing delays in the collection of payments that led to some issues. So we have the online version of the certificate, and so it's this certificate is issued by CNCE nationally, together with INAIL and INPS, the other institutions involved. The efficacy of the initial contributions payment certificate has been dampened a bit because the first certificate assured immediate control. This gives an immediate response, but it takes 3 or 4 months time to complete inspections. So the companies have a sort of benefit, a 3 or 4 month benefit. But perhaps we can discuss this in further detail in the coming days. But I think it can be improved. It's a starting point, as we've always said. Together with the Ministry of Labour, we need to work on this, because one of the possibilities is something that we're implementing as an Italian system in the areas in the earthquake areas, in the 4 central regions in Italy, and in these areas, this certificate is backed by another certificate that doesn't concern only the actual payment, but actual that the contributions paid were the ones due, and this obviously this means that we're not just checking that payments or contributions being paid, but that this is consistent with the work being carried out. So some percentages have been determined that have been shared and issued by the circular letters of the in the circular letters of the ministry. To obtain these certificates, the enterprise has to prove that the expenditure for labor falls within these parameters, fits with these parameters. This is an important step forward in order to try and eradicate a phenomenon. I have to be honest now, rather than fully undeclared work, which I'm not saying that it's disappeared, because it hasn't, but it has dropped significantly. We have those gray areas, the gray work that we need to focus on, and we also need to focus on another issue. I don't know whether this experienced by other European countries or not, namely the application of alternative contracts to the construction contracts. In some cases, the firms involved in the works apply more beneficial contracts and not the construction contracts, and this means that the workers are regularly hired, but there is a greater illusion and obviously not everything is not all the rights of workers are recognized. Holiday pay, supplementary pension accrued, all these things are eluded for workers, and thus creating unfair competition for those who apply the collective labor agreement and others that don't. So this is a battle that is being pursued by the organization I represent and the unions as well, and you'll understand that there are other lobbies countering us in order to pursue other goals. But if we want to achieve regularity at European level and movement of workers at European level, we need to have some specific yardsticks at national level, and so we need to ensure that, I don't know, just imagine a foreign firm coming to work in Italy. So you have to apply the collective labor agreement, you have to be registered with the construction workers funds, and then it will find itself competing with companies that are applying different contracts. So we are pursuing these projects, we are working, we already have some proposals to this regard, because in our country too we have some issues, and we haven't had the problems of skilled workers. I mean, we didn't have this. We had this problem 10 years ago, perhaps. In my office, I have a plate. When my grandfather, to do his job, had to have 8 years experience. He must have had a 2-year course, and then he could have open up a construction company. Today, it's sufficient to go to any chamber of commerce and say, "Oh, I'm a construction company," and he can open up this company, and without any limits. In the case of tenders, we have some regulations and the necessary registration with certifying bodies that obviously apply limits based on the features of the company. For private works, there are no such limits. Anybody can do this. And then those who obviously register with the construction funds, obviously there will be a requirement in terms of courses and so on, but the rest are free. So as social partners, we have already try to introduce measures to assure that construction companies have to fulfill certain minimum requirements. We're not asking for more. Again, there's a debate. If I start for a minimum, do we think that it is necessary, at any rate, sensible to have some limits in terms of contracts that can be awarded? If you start off with a staff of 2 or 3 workers, I mean, it's difficult that that company can handle tenders for 2 or 3 million euros, for example. Another discussion that we engage in, well, if I understood correctly, in the German system, if a company that hasn't paid, I think it cannot take part in public tenders for 3 years. Is that correct? So if in our country, if the contributions payment certificate, then the company can take part in public tenders, but it has to obviously make its payment contribution payments, and then it can take part in tenders. So it would be nice to have a sort of point-based license. So if you make some infringements, your points are deducted, and at that point you can't take part in the tenders. Then another thing that I'd like to specify regarding the Italian system is that we have many supervisory bodies, public ones. Many institutes can intervene in construction sites and make inspections, both in terms of the application of collective labor agreements and the application of insurance and pension forms, but also regarding safety at work. I don't know how many inspectorates we have. We have the Carabinieri, the police, the local health authorities. So we have many different bodies involved. So we have now created a single body. We should be getting to a single coordinating body to check safety and regularity of work in construction sites. Then obviously once we have one body, then we must have a single control room to avoid everybody drifting in different directions, because then if the law is applied differently, then this can create some confusion amongst the players. So I don't wish to go any further because we're tight for time, but what I hope when we have these kind of meetings, and I was eager to take part in meetings even abroad, so aside from the projects that will be pursued in the field of the posting of workers, there are some systems applied in some areas or countries that are worth copying. So it would be a good idea to draw on the good practices, I don't know, in France or Germany. And it would be a good idea to apply them in our country too. I believe that copying something good is always desirable. As I said, let's keep up this work. Personally, I believe that we don't need to develop a perfect system, but rather a good system and apply it. I hope that the Eupost-lab project will continue along these lines regarding the posting of workers in order to have common legislation and rules and regulations. And I wish you all the best for the judicial proceedings, and I'll see you later because we'll be here afterwards to discuss other aspects in further detail. Thank you.